If you're listening on the podcast, be sure to jump back to the previous episode to listen to the first half of this conversation. Come back here for part 2.
Welcome to the Building Doctor Show with Jens Johansson.
A good thing we hear, it's like, I don't see any leaks in my unit. And unfortunately, here we've pulled off the interior drywall. Unfortunately, it takes a while for that water to come through your 2x4 wall cavity or 2x6 wall cavity that's full of insulation and all this stuff. So it takes a while for that water to penetrate, get into the flooring, soak the flooring, get all soft and spongy. And so just because you don't see wet carpet doesn't mean you don't have water damage around the corners of your windows. As you can see, we're looking at the back side of the exterior gyp or back side of the exterior sheathing. And not only is that damaged on the outside, like some of these photos we just showed you, on the inside, it starts getting a little, this is an outlet, and the back of that wire comes through the outlet. That outlet isn't sealed. Your air quality starts to be a concern when you start breathing this stuff, and it smells like rotten sill plate in your bedroom, and why does my room smell wet and musty?
And these things, those are hard to find.
What's that?
Those are hard to find. Sometimes you don't know what's on the inside. By the time you do, to your point, by the time you see it on the inside, how much effect has already happened in that wall? Yeah. A lot of times we're out just doing a visual to look at walls and windows and, trying to train the eye. What are you looking for? I'm going to look at sealant. I'm going to look at the installation, how it was installed. Can I identify any of those sequences walking inside and outside of somebody's home? And then is there a potential for risk? Do we need to do something additional? And in this case, the homeowner found it.
Yeah. And this is a good little giveaway, the stained carpet. And so some piece of furniture, maybe with metal, tacks in the bottom of the thing to help you slide it around the room, was sitting in the wet carpet for a while. And now we've got rust on the carpet. Why do I have stains on my carpet? That's weird. So this is what's going on in your wall cavity. I mean, the sill framing is shot, and the exterior gyp is nasty. So, okay, Jim, tell us about window testing. Here's a picture of a spray rack. This is how we spray the water and simulate wind-driven rain. But walk us through this.
So window testing is the application of water at a prescribed rate on the outside. And in our case, when we do it, we induce a negative pressure on the window. So that is simulating wind-driven rain. So based on the negative pressure we exhibit on the window with the water on the outside, we are now testing to the manufacturer standard. So all of these windows have got design pressure ratings and performance grade ratings. So we are only trying to do that. Now, you can put water out there and go get a big turbojet engine, and you can test that way. And that's actually how it started. Was with the it's like an old Pratt and Whitney propeller motor. We're going to spin this thing up, and we're going to put water in there, and we're going to blow it at the window. We cannot all go by Pratt and Whitney airplane motors, so there are other methods to it. The reason we do this is to ensure a couple of things. One, that the window product itself meets the manufacturer's standards and requirements. So they say this will pass this rate of testing, so we're going to go double check. Two, we're checking the window installation. So the window installation itself, as our design, is our design professional, that we want to make sure that the window is meeting or exceeding, the window installation is meeting or exceeding the requirements for our project. We have tested hundreds and hundreds, and dare I say thousands of windows, in the western half of the United States, wherever we can drag our stuff to go test it. 25% of the windows coming from the manufacturer fail, brand new windows. So trying to diagnose that and help people solve some problems. That's why we do this.
So that's what he's referring to is we'll test existing windows in place to try to determine, is this an install failure or a window failure? But what he's saying, 25% of the windows off the truck when we're doing a new repair job, here comes the first order of windows. We take them right off the truck and put them in a buck and test them real fast and just say, did we get what we paid for? Yes, good. Okay, next. And we do a little sampling size of that and just spot check them because we found such a high percentage of failures. So, and if they fail, the manufacturer comes out and tries to make some quick repairs. Maybe it's just a simple thing like we talked about, that tape being folded or, human error. Okay, there it is. It's obvious. I'll fix it. Test it again. Yep. Thumbs up. Let's go. Sometimes the contractors need to replace them. And then the contractors go back to the manufacturer and say, hey, you gave what I thought was a brand new window. I put it in and cited it and then it failed. So anyway, this is required by Washington law if your project is big enough, not big enough, but big enough. And sometimes it may be contractually required, but check your state statute and check the contract language. And we would, we're really recommending it and encouraging it for developers to say, prove to the buyers that you've gone through this process and that you've tested windows and they're good and we're all happy. And so it's just a little bit of a preventive test. The costs of testing, I think we can, a day's worth of testing is kind of in that $4,000 ballpark by the time we do some windows. Now in place windows, that's 3 or 4 windows. Windows off coming from the truck to the buck, and it's probably 6 windows. And so you can kind of get a flavor for if it's $3,000 and I can do 4, or if it's $4,000 and I can do 4, that's about $1,000 a window to test. And so for a sampling size, that may be great. But we'll talk about it later when people say, wait a minute, I just replaced my windows. Do I have to replace them again? Well, I can test them. It's about $1,000 a window. Or you can buy a new window for about $350, $400. And so oftentimes the testing and the configuring and all that stuff is more expensive than just replacing the window on a broad scale. So on a complete complex scale, it's easier or it's more cost effective to replace them. Anything else, Jim? As far as leaks through and around, we isolate. We can plasticate and tape off the WRB, so we're just focused on the window, and vice versa. We can tape off all the window and make sure it's not gaskets and things. Make sure it's install that we're testing.
Yeah, typically going out to a property, we're going to identify first if we're there for the window product or the window install or both, because there are different methods for this. And it's as simple as plasticating off the window and isolating it from the installation. So we're only putting water and pressure on an install versus a product. A lot of the existing windows that we go to test in situ or in the wall, we're going to isolate the wall from the window product itself because the window installation at a given time may not have been to meet all of the codes and the air barriers and energy codes and everything else. So I don't want to have a false negative where we just get water through an install, then we have to wait a couple hours for everything to dry to test a product. So yeah, understanding what we're doing ahead of time is very important.
Yep. Okay. And we can do this testing on doors, on sliding glass doors, on skylights, on curtain walls, on entry systems, on all sorts of stuff. So we can do a variety of water testing for you. And then in a claim situation, sometimes you'll have 2 parties. So typically the framer installs the windows and then the sider puts on the WRB. And so if you're defending one or the other, kind of helping or prosecuting, either one, help understand who screwed up and allocate accordingly. Okay, warranties and guarantees. Let me take you to law school here just quickly. According to the Black's Law Dictionary, it defines these couple things. A warranty, think about it, is a promise for a particular statement of fact, meaning this window has a warranty. The guarantee is an undertaking that promise will bind to the performance of an event, meaning the window itself has a 20-year warranty, but the installer is giving a guarantee that it won't leak for X number of years. And if it does leak, do they pay for the damage that it caused? So again, with product manufacturing, some types of products like roofing, especially, they have an NDL, a no damage limitation clause. So they're actually giving a warranty on the membrane of the roof, but a guarantee that they will fix the damage if their membrane leaks. And so that's just kind of helping us understand warranty versus guarantee. In that second bullet, it's usually the contractor or the installer has that warranty transferring to guarantee. So because we get all this language about my windows have a 20-year warranty, why are they, my windows have a lifetime guarantee, why are they having a problem? So warranty, we get into some other little fine print of, is it transferable to original or from original purchaser? Is the fix just the window? Here you go. Here's a new $200 window. It's your problem to install it. Oh, the damage? Yeah, that's not covered in the warranty. Do they reinstall that new window? Then we'll get into kind of fine print from a manufacturer that starts with this. There's no warranty or guarantee if it's used in a multifamily or condominium project. And, what do we mean by that? Wait a minute. My installer knew this was a condo and he put these windows in here, and now I don't have any kind of warranty or lifetime guarantee because it was installed in a condominium project. Lifetime of who and how long, and of who is original purchaser, the lifetime of the length or the time frame that they actually live there or own the unit. So here's the problem. The original purchaser was the developer. The developer bought those windows from brand X. They're the original purchaser. They're the one with the lifetime warranty. Then they sold the unit to you as the resident. You don't have that guarantee, or that guarantee is not transferable to you. Let's take another situation. The flipper in the, this latest 5 years of, hey, the flipper bought new windows, and when he finished his flip, sold the place. So that warranty lasted as long as the flipper owned it. Or the resident who, hey, my windows look old and tired. I'm told I have to replace my windows. I'm going to sell anyway. It'll sell for more dollar if I put in new windows. They put in new windows and sell their unit. Well, that warranty stayed with the original purchaser. So anyway, understand, read your fine print. Don't get locked into the excitement of I've got a lifetime guarantee when you don't. And so understanding the third bullet, installation, understanding, is it a manufacturer / installer? So some of these programs out there for replacement windows are basically white labeled windows. They're not built by that company. They're built by a big name and then sold as that company's name. And so you can ask the manufacturer, hey, give me some names of approved installation contractors that can do this. Is that covering that, Jim?
So just a quick story on limited lifetime warranty. So it is the year 2024 now. So 7 years ago, bought a home, and it was a new home, and it had new windows. And then we all went through this thing called COVID, where we had to work from home. And so one of the days I was sitting in my wife's office and I was working, and I looked outside the window and I noticed my window was broken. Not the glass, but the vinyl frame. Vinyl frame had a crack in it. So original purchaser was probably the builder, But since I was the first owner outside of the builder, when I called the manufacturer, they said, sure, it's under warranty. Here is your original purchase order. Surprised they still had it. So they sent me a window.
Just in the mail? Just came Amazon or what?
Yeah, UPS showed up one day and I had a new window. So now it's on me to go replace my window that's broken because the frame is broken. And being in the line of work that I'm in, I knew I didn't want to leave a broken frame in my wall for too long. So while they stood behind their product for a period of time, there was no labor to do any sort of replacement work. So I did find some window manufacturers, some window installers that we work with. And I said, will you please do this at my house? Because it was very important to do. And, one thing down at the installation, there's a lot of manufacturers that say, hey, if you use our installation guidelines, we're going to give you an installation warranty. But if the contractor is not trained in those installation guidelines and they don't have some sort of a little card like this says that they went through a class somewhere, there really isn't a guarantee on that installation because the manufacturer is not going to stand behind it. So read the fine print because yes, there are some transferable warranties. Limited lifetime is a very interesting period of terminology. And then what is covered? Frames are covered at a different rate than glass. So you do have some glass coverage. So if the seal pops and there's condensation inside, manufacturers will send you some new pieces of glass. And then you'll be like me with my one piece of glass that had popped. They said, okay, here's some butyl tape and a piece of glass. Go replace your window. So,
Okay. Yep. Okay. All right. I noticed we're getting long. I told you this was a meaty episode, so we're going to keep moving. But why did the window go see a doctor? It was in pain. Are you painfully eager to get started? Get in touch with Jim today and let's clear things up about your windows. Jim can be reached at jimk@j2consultants.com. There he is. All right. Ownership issues. I'm going to go a little faster, but what we have to talk about is maintenance, sealants, replacing glass versus the frame, color and type issues. I think mismatched quilt. And then a quote from Amy, who was turning on a past guest of the Building Doctor Show. She said, I always thought it was risky to permit owners to replace windows because it does impact the building in so many ways that can be very negative. And so maybe controlling that would be better to do the repair on that. So, all right, ownership issues. I've got a stack of windows with 3 different types of frames in them on the left photo. And on the right photo, yeah, I keep going back to this job that had fins stuck on the outside. I just want to show you how the wood trim, after he put on the wood trim to cover the tape, really made it look better. But yeah, bad install. Here's the left photo. I've got 4 different window types in these 2 buildings. They're part of the same complex because the HOA directed the residents, if you want new windows, go get them yourself. And in the right photo, I've got 3 or 4 different types. I've got aluminum, I've got white vinyl, I've got almond vinyl. So now the exterior of my uniform complex starts looking like a patchwork quilt. Oftentimes, window replacement going from aluminum to vinyl earns you an energy rebate with the local PUD. So here's an example of aluminum windows, and we were doing a strip and reclad, so we're putting in new windows. Here's the after, looks marvelous. They got a check for $134,000, and that was just a free bonus check. They're for doing the energy rebate, their energy costs went way down, and obviously they got better looking windows. So don't underestimate that. We can help you through those laborious questionnaires. After you do 10 or 12 of them, you figure out your way through them. Okay, trickle vents. So it's a window issue and it's not a window issue. It's interior and exterior air exchange. If you keep breathing the same interior air, it gets stagnant. The code gives us guidelines, and the whole house fans do this for us. That's that fan that turns on in the middle of the night, typically in your bathroom. It's moving air. It's sucking air through the building. But where does this makeup air come from? We want it to come from the exterior because that's supposedly clean air instead of your stale interior air. So the trickle vents, they're literally, the first gen was literally a hole through the window frame that had this fancy louver and little grill on the outside of it. Here's a picture of, that's on the side of a window, so that's a better one. But it's literally a hole through the frame. You would hold your hand up against it and feel the wind blow. And they had these little slidable covers that you could latch them down. Guess what? Everybody would latch them down because their windows are drafty. And so then they wouldn't get fresh air exchange. So then the version 2 would put them on the side for an intake and an exhaust or whatever on the other side. Because remember those earlier pictures of that hollow frame, the air would flow through and it wouldn't just blow straight through into your face. It would have to kind of twist and turn and you wouldn't feel the draft, but it would allow interior airflow. And so this is important for exterior fresh air exchange. But window manufacturers were tired of getting blamed because trickle vents would trickle. They would leak water right through the window. And they'd be like, I'm required to put these in per code. So actually, they just started saying, we're not offering them anymore. Your air exchange is part of your mechanical airflow ventilation. Deal with it there. We're going to give you a solid window. Is that consistent with the latest trickle code stuff, Jim?
So the way things are written right now, yes, it's become part of the mechanical code as opposed to being something that needs to be put into the windows. The only thing that we have seen in the different areas we serve is some of the municipalities saying if it has trickle vents now, we want trickle vents for your replacement windows. And the second generation, third generation, whatever generation we're on with trickle vents are better than the initial ones because at least it's not just a hole cut straight through the frame to allow the airflow. So they perform better now.
Yep. Okay. Leakers and non-leakers. That's what we call them. Okay. Safety and window design. A few things to be thinking about. I've got 4 bullets here. The first is tempered. So that's safety glass breaks into bits versus shards. It's usually tougher to break. It's required in, these bullet points, mainly around doors or wet locations, running and slipping, swinging, sliding, operable, fixed. They'll have little stickers in the window or maybe even a little engraving on the glass. And so extra large windows, 9 square feet or bigger. Think about if a big pane were to fall out, would that kill somebody because it's all shardy and sharp, or would it just, break into little bits and pieces? So tempered glass. Security glass, that's something different. It's usually laminated with plastic film between the layers, and it's, you can bang on it, try to break it and do all that stuff. And it, it's more for a security piece, but there's times where you'd want security windows. And then we get into fire. That's kind of its own little ballpark. It's got a different reinforced frame. We can't have a vinyl frame because it'll just melt, right? Plastic will melt. We've got a different kind of glass. It usually has some wire in it as part of a reinforcing. These fire windows are usually specified in designated escape routes or emergency egress paths to evacuate a building based on building type. So you can get lost in the code in the sense of movie theaters that got to get a lot of people out. These 2 doors, they have designated routes, whereas a multifamily may have a bunch of exterior doors, maybe a walkway, maybe a stairwell that they have to deal with. It's determined by the building official. The code gives us guidance there, but I'll tell you a couple other little stories. And then you can have automated electronic roll down shutter, kind of lock down like a bank or a jewelry store. You can have different ways to address your fire windows. And then limiters. Limiters are preventing you from opening the window to basically keep kids from falling out of high windows. We've got some building codes there. The little limiters always bust off, the cheap ones that pop up and you run the window too hard and you'll break it. I think Jim has one of those window examples with a limiter built in.
Yeah.
What's that?
I do. You want me to show it, or you want to keep rolling?
You can show it. I can talk about fire windows while you're showing it. The back to the designated areas, what we start with is our architect will review it and decipher all the code, but it's really building official determined, and some building officials punt to the fire marshal, who sits in the same building usually. And they want to do things, either per code, per what their city does, or per what their experience wants. And so we've had situations where the fire marshal just says, I know it's not necessary, but I just saw this identical problem in an identical building down the block and somebody got hurt, so I'm making you put in fire windows. And it's like, oh, okay. So we've just, or the building department will review the plan intake and not make any comment. And then all of a sudden something comes back from another department that says, tough, put in fire windows. So these are a little bit different, but there is code to guide us. But what I'm saying is it's ultimately determined by the building official or the fire marshal. So it's just a more expensive window. All right. Need an inspection? Any of this stuff sound good? Give me a call. I can be reached at learn.j2consultants.com, consultants on call. All right, let's jump into Q&A. We've got a couple of questions that pertain to Windows that were submitted earlier in the month, but get your questions into the Q&A and we will get to them. So number one question we hear, and it's tough. Hey, when we're talking to the association of, hey, we found a bunch of damage, you got to replace your siding. While your siding's off, you might want to replace your windows. And one of the number one questions we hear, hey, I just spent 15 grand replacing my windows. Can my windows be saved? So we get into kind of a matrix of questions. We say, are they installed correctly? So if I can look at them quickly and go, there's no fin, they're crooked, there's no sealant, this is junk, they're coming out. Well, there is a fin. They were done right. The siding was pulled off when my windows were replaced, and I had to do all that correctly. So the windows are installed correctly. Yes. Number two, will they match? And how important is uniformity to the HOA? And so I just spent $15,000 putting in these black framed windows, and the rest of the board or aesthetic committee or the neighborhood aesthetic, department says no black windows. You have to have white vinyl, or you have to have wood, or you have to have this, or have to have that. Or just, can we even match what you have there? You have a fancy window. I agree it would have cost you $20,000, but it's so fancy, nobody can match it. And so we're going to have one unit with different windows. And then we can test them. Okay, great. Who's paying for the testing at $1,000 a window? Are there instances where we've saved windows in the past? Yes. And we've gone through each one of these. And so that's just how it kind of gets determined. So that's something to work with your board on. But this is the matrix that we think about. Jim, anything to add to that?
No, there's times that we do replace them, and it's really a risk analysis. And then in each per unit analysis, what are we dealing with? Can we reuse it? Is it in the best interest of the building as a whole to try and reuse something? Because a lot of these windows are fastened through the jambs. So there's a bunch of holes punched into the frames. So it's understanding the pros and the cons of it and putting that out there, and then we review it together.
Yep. Okay, next question. How long will the windows be? Oops, I was reading ahead. Who should be responsible, the HOA or the owner, for replacement windows or putting in new windows? And then kind of that second question, who is at fault? So I think that's who's at fault if their replaced windows leak. And so Who should be responsible for the windows? Well, either one. I mean, it depends on your documents, what your documents say. 90% of the governing documents, I don't know if it's in bylaws or CCNRs or whatever, your manager and HOA attorney will be able to tell you that. But they usually have some context about the owner is responsible for the glass, or the owner is responsible for the windows even. And what that primarily refers to is the broken window pane that their kid was playing ball and busted the window, or the fogged up window pane that they can't see out of anymore. Owners are responsible for their windows, meaning if they're broken. Now, are they responsible for the frame that's under the siding, nailed to the framing, integrated with all this stuff? And so that's where if your documents are silent or if they're ambiguous, that's where I would hire an attorney, an HOA attorney, to give you an opinion letter for about $1,200. They can read all of your documents and say, you know what? The intent of your documents, a window is probably a common element or not. And then some documents we're seeing are the owners are responsible, but the association is responsible for doing the work and giving them the bill. So that's the same, ultimately, they're paying for it, whether you're being assessed to replace windows or you're just doing one set of units, but you're still paying the bill. But the association is responsible for it because they want to control the install and make sure it's done correctly. So who is at fault? I'm assuming the question is, well, if the third floor replaces their windows and they do it badly and the water drains down the second floor and the first floor, who's responsible for that? Well, ultimately it'd be the contractor who replaced the third floor windows that caused the leaks. Now, can we get a hold of that contractor because that resident moved out, or that flipper did their own windows and they did it really sloppily? They weren't licensed to begin with. So those are kind of questions that you as a board or association need to wrestle with. Anything else, Jim?
No, I know how I prefer it. And
How do you prefer it?
if my favorite sports team loses and I throw my remote and I break the glass, I should be responsible for that glass. But I would like that frame to be part of the building envelope component so I can make sure those things are all tied in together well.
So you didn't throw your remote in your wife's office, did you? Because you broke.
And it was the frame that was broken.
Okay. Last question, how long should the windows be out during replacement? How long will the window be out during replacement? Okay, here's what happens. Your old window is sitting there, the siding's already been removed, the new window is brought up the scaffolding, it's leaned against the side of the building. The installers pop the old window out, do the 9 steps on our drawings or whatever they are, slide the new window in. It's literally an hour or two, but it is never overnight. You're never left without windows in your unit. And so it can be sequenced. And so we don't have a piece of plywood nailed on, that kind of thing. So it's in and out, and good contractors will even plasticate the interior if it's windy, so we don't have dust and blowing into your unit. So it's fairly quick. All right. So then on to the live Q&A. Those of you who attend live get the chance to ask the questions. Okay. So the first question, what are your thoughts on windows being the owner's responsibility over the HOA? Our board informed me recently the windows are my responsibility, but they are responsible for the connecting parts. So we kind of covered some of that. Think of it like glass, because I can take out that IGU. And so I can replace the glass if it fogs up or breaks or Jim throws the remote at it. And so that one we can do the glass. If it's the frame, we really want to, the HOA should probably be responsible for nailing things to the building or attaching them to the building. Next question, how long does testing take? And testing takes, oh boy. Jim, you want to answer this one?
Yeah. So testing for one window takes half of a day, whereas testing for 3 windows will take the whole day. It has to do with the setup and getting everything ready to go. And then once you're set up, it's a lot easier and more streamlined to move through. So try and get the team to test a minimum of 3 windows or a maximum of 3 windows a day.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. Can you coordinate the rebate for the board as part of your services? Yes, 100%. And it's like any government form. It's kind of a pain in the neck the first 5 times you do it. But after you get a template going and after you know what you're looking for and adding up, we can get that done for you. But yeah, the people who do it for the first time are pulling their hair out. So we can totally coordinate that.
And it's ultimately evaluating to make sure that you would qualify. So you have to have some existing conditions, and then with your replacements, the betterment, if you will, does that meet a certain threshold? So initial evaluation, and then yes.
Yep. Okay. And then next question, what is WRB? My bad. Using, what do you call those abbreviations? So WRB is weather resistive barrier. That is your building's raincoat. That is your building's building paper, your Tyvek, your black building paper. That's really shedding the water. And so it's under your cladding. Your cladding is actually protecting the WRB. The cladding sheds a lot of water, but water gets through your cladding and gets to the WRB, and then that should drain effectively out. And it's a combination of Tyvek, the tape, the sealants, the flashings, all that stuff. And in today's episode, your window is integrated into your WRB. It should be sealed together like trying to peel apart a grilled cheese sandwich. It just doesn't come apart. And so we really want it weather tight in your WRB. Last question, is testing for skylights the same? It is slightly different, but it is very similar. We can use the same calibrated testing measures. We pay attention to the curb. Your skylight sits over a curb, and so there are different ASTMs for that. But then it's a function of some skylights are a series of panels, and others are one unit, and so we can get leaks obviously through all those joints. Okay, that is the last question. Any other questions? Dun, 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 dun. Okay, I do not know what the giveaway is. Maybe Brooke or Carolyn, the producers, can unmute and tell us what's in our giveaway box.
It's a surprise.
It's a surprise. All right. Okay, Jim, pick a number between 1 and 13. And the lucky person, you are identified by the order you signed into your webinar today. And Brooke and Carolyn know that. So if you're the lucky number, they will reach out to you and get your address and send you a surprise.
Okay, I'm going to go all the way back to playing soccer days. I'm going to go with number 11.
Number 11. Okay, jersey number, favorite number. Is that the score in a game?
Oh, it was my jersey number, yeah.
Right on, lucky 11. 11 wins the thing. Okay, did you know we have free resources for boards and managers? Of course you did. You're watching one of them, the Building Doctor Show. This is a monthly program, but you can also scan the QR code and see over 300 videos on YouTube. Follow our social media. Not only is it funny, it's entertaining as well. And we talk a lot about this stuff here. We also have a monthly newsletter. We've got so much stuff that organizations that in our industry are reaching out to us to help us spread the news. And you can stream, shoot us up on any kind of podcast you listen to. Here's the variety of colors and logos. And remember to like and subscribe. And are you painfully eager to get this webinar over? No, I'm joking. Thank you so much, Jim, for being today's guest and talking to us about windows. Any closing comments you would have?
Thank you all for having me. Education is free, so use those resources and reach out and let us give you some free advice. Want to make sure our experience is shared with everybody that's listening today. So Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
This podcast is part of J2's free live webinar, The Building Doctor Show. To attend the live show and ask your questions during the Q&A, visit www.j2consultants.com.